Hello to my friends. I'm Meagan Hatcher-Mays, Director of Democracy Policy at Indivisible, and welcome back to another edition of Impeachment Daily. You know what this is. Impeachment Daily exists to demystify the impeachment process and let you know how you can stay involved in this fight. There's actually a little bit of a lull in the impeachment proceedings today because the House took a break from the investigation to honor the late Elijah Cummings, the longtime representative from Baltimore who chaired the Oversight Committee, one of the committees investigating Trump, who passed away last week. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to take kind of a step back and talk about the impeachment process more generally, although, never fear, there was some news today, so sure, why not? We can talk about Lindsey Graham and the mischief he's getting up to today in the Senate. So let's get started with our first segment, shall we? It is called What Just Happened, where we recap what we know. We're going to take it a little bit back into history today. This segment is actually based on a question that I got about something that I said yesterday. I mentioned that polling is now showing that a majority of Americans want Trump impeached and removed. So we got a question about that. Can a president be impeached but not removed? The answer is yes. And in fact, that is what happened with Bill Clinton's impeachment trial back in the 90s. He was impeached in the House, but the Senate ultimately voted to acquit him. In other words, they did not remove him from office. So here's basically, to the best of my ability, here's basically how impeachment works. So first, as you know, the House investigates and drafts the articles of impeachment, and they ultimately take a vote on those articles. That's what they're doing right now. They're investigating all of Trump's corruption, so much corruption, and deciding which of all of that should form the basis of the impeachment articles. So another way to think about the articles is like as criminal charges. So this is for all my Law and Order stans out there. And if I was very cool, I would make the noise, the dong dong. Anyway, the House drafts up a list of the various high crimes and misdemeanors. That's the phrase that's used in the Constitution. High crimes and misdemeanors that they think the president should be charged with. Then the House takes a vote on those articles. So that vote represents whether or not those charges are serious enough to be referred to the Senate for the actual impeachment trial. So for the articles of impeachment to be improved, you actually only need a simple majority in the House. That's 51%, which is about 218 votes at the moment. The good news is we actually know 228 members of Congress support the impeachment inquiry, which is great, although it does mean we're going to need to continue talking to these folks, these members of Congress, throughout this process so that they ultimately vote the right way on impeachment. So keep calling, keep going to town halls. You know what to do, because we need them to vote the right way at the end of all of this. Anyway, once the articles of impeachment are approved, those charges are referred to the Senate for the actual impeachment trial. Now, that's where we actually decide whether or not the president should be convicted, right? Whether or not he should be removed from office. So the trial itself is kind of like a funky process. This does not happen very often, so each impeachment is kind of its own thing. But first of all, it's overseen by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He's the judge. And that right now is John Roberts. He is a Bush judge who, thanks, struck down key provisions in the Voting Rights Act. Thanks, man. But the Senate itself agrees to the rules at the beginning of the trial. So that means they could set rules to disallow certain kinds of evidence, which, knowing Mitch McConnell, he might be inclined to do, like try to make the trial as favorable as possible to Donald Trump. And that's why we've already been asking you to contact your senators now about committing to a fair and open trial. We want as much evidence of Trump's corruption to come in as possible because we want to know that we can trust this process. We want to know that the outcome is legitimate, and we want to make sure it's not rigged, right? We don't want Mitch McConnell to rig this thing. But for just one second, if you allow me to digress for just one hot minute, I want to talk about the Chief Justice's role in all of this. This actually might be my favorite, like, dumb piece of history. So the last time a president was impeached was Bill Clinton. That was back in the 90s. The Chief Justice at the time was this guy named William Rehnquist, who, you know, had a lot of really bad ideas about the law. But anyway, he was also a fan of musical theater. and was inspired to have special judicial robes made after seeing a local production of a Gilbert and Sullivan show. So this is real. Here they are. He had these gold stripes added for like dramatic effect, I guess. And the impeachment trial was like a special occasion, so he busted them out. This is not a joke. If they're in the Smithsonian right now, so if you're ever in DC, you can go see them. It's super weird, but one of my favorite weird little things. And we're very close to finding out if John Roberts has had any cool customized robes made for this moment. Looking forward to finding that out once and for all. But back to impeachment. So the trial happens in the Senate decides the rules, and the Chief Justice presides over the trial, and he makes determinations about evidence that comes in and witnesses and stuff like that. At the end of it all, 100 senators take a vote. Now, remember, we have talked about this before too. The senators are the jurors in this impeachment trial, and they will ultimately vote to convict or acquit. So to convict, or to like remove the president from office, you need 2/3 of the senators to vote that way. That's 67 senators, which is a lot, but I don't think that's insurmountable. Because remember, too, that there are some senators who are already mad at Donald Trump. There are some who are in trouble politically because of their Kavanaugh vote, who we might be able to convince to do the right thing here. So that could be like Susan Collins, Cory Gardner, Tom Tillis, Martha McSally, some of those folks. Those folks, maybe some other Republicans too, might not want to tie their political futures to someone as corrupt as Donald Trump. Would you? I certainly wouldn't. I mean, I mentioned this yesterday. 50% of Americans think Donald Trump should be impeached and removed. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary, right? And believe me, Republicans are looking at the exact same polling I'm looking at. You know, I don't get special numbers. And guess what? More Americans are in favor of impeaching Trump right now than they were of Richard Nixon at the same time in the 70s. That's really bad. You remember what happened to Nixon? He was so unpopular. He resigned. Donald. So that's important process stuff to kind of keep in mind as we move through the next few weeks. There's going to be a lot going on. We think that the House is going to start holding public hearings around mid-November, so that's probably, if we're being honest, going to make a bad situation very, very much worse for old Donald over there. So that's what just happened, sort of. But what is happening? What's happening right now? Not a lot, actually, except Lindsey Graham, a senator from South Carolina, apparently saw this dumb stunt that House Republicans pulled yesterday when they broke into the SCIF with their cell phones, immediately started making phone calls and tweeting. Thanks so much, guys, for that. I think Lindsey Graham was jealous of all the media attention they got, so he thought, oh, what dumb thing can I do to get on TV? And proving once again that there is no scumbag too repugnant for Lindsey Graham to publicly support, he announced that he's going to introduce a resolution condemning the House for their really unfair impeachment inquiry. Now, Lindsey Graham is like a terrible person. You may remember him. He went out of his way to defend Brett Kavanaugh last year after Kavanaugh was credibly accused of sexual assault by multiple women. And in fact, Lindsey Graham's Twitter photo is a picture of him with Brett Kavanaugh. Gross. So this week, after Trump compared his impeachment to a lynching, Graham wholeheartedly agreed. And he said, this is a lynching in every sense. I mean, it's not. It's a lynching in no sense. There is no sense under which impeachment could accurately be described as a lynching. This is all completely disgusting and racist, and I'm about to lose it. So anyway, Lindsey Graham is introducing this ridiculous resolution because every American should be disturbed by what's taking place in the House of Representatives, and President Trump, one of the cornerstones of American jurisprudence is due process, and, you know, Trump isn't getting due process. What I actually think is happening here is that Lindsey Graham felt bad for complaining about Donald Trump last week when Trump announced he was pulling U.S. troops out of Syria. Lindsey Graham actually stood up to him in that case, and now is like, don't worry, Mr. Trump, I still love you, you're still my best friend. It's really disgusting. And by the way, this whole thing about due process, we talked about that too. Of course the president is owed due process, but he's receiving it. It's prescribed in the Constitution. It's the process is in here, and it's playing out in the House of Representatives right now. And keep in mind that the president gets to have a lawyer and be present and all of that, just like any other criminal defendant when the Senate impeachment trial starts. So in closing, Lindsey Graham, go away, please. A weary nation demands it. Just be gone with you. All right, that's what just happened. That's what is happening. Now here's how you can stay involved. You already know, please text Impeach to 97779 and we will connect you directly with your representatives. Remember I said we have a majority of the House supports the impeachment inquiry, but we want to make sure that a majority of the House will actually vote to impeach. So make sure you're calling your representatives and letting them know how important this is to you. Also remember, there is a recess coming up. The House will be in recess the week of November 3rd, and so you can go to impeachnow.org and check out the map, RSVP for events, or register your own event. And also, we're really excited to keep you posted about events that are going to be happening right around the time of the final impeachment vote in the House. So stay tuned. We will send you more information about that in the next few days. Super excited to see you all out in the streets demanding a better democracy. Thank you so much for tuning in to Impeachment Daily, and I will see you right back here tomorrow.